This is a difficult time right now for a lot of reasons, and we're not playing well, that's obvious. Our connectedness is not where it needs to be. Our collective spirit is not where it needs to be. I'm going to look very closely at the film tonight, the coaching staff is, and we've got to come up with answers.
The Indiana Pacers fall 130 to 113, Facci, and at this point, the Pacers are now 6-9 for the season, and there's nothing really else left to say except this team stinks.
Flat out, I'm not having fun, and I know no one else is. Watching this team right now has felt more of like a chore, something that you have to do. It's almost like, you can't have that dessert unless you watch your Indiana Pacers. It's like, oh, no, please, no, not the Pacers, but I just miss that excitement that we had to end last season. And this season, through 15 games, there's only been a couple of glimmers of excitement, and that's definitely not what anyone expected.
Well, hey, let's look at the positives here just quickly. Moses Brown signs, plays with the Pacers, scores his first point, 6 points, 4 rebounds, got that all in garbage time, final 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. Quinton Jackson has his first career start. Has his first career 20-point game, scores 24 points, 10 of 12 from the field. That's the only good thing that happened in this game. Everything else in this game completely sucked. And it has nothing to do with what the Rockets were doing. It has everything to do with what the Pacers were not doing, okay? And there's a lot of ways you can look at this, but the first thing that we need to touch on is what in the world has happened to the franchise player for this team, the All-NBA All-Star Tyrese Haliburton. It's deeper than the way teams are guarding him. It's deeper than, oh, he's hurt. This is a mental and physical problem to me. He looks like he's completely lost out there. Just seems to be kind of going through the motions. And I posted a clip in the third quarter when he was on a fast break. Quinton Jackson has the ball out in the open. It's about a 3-on-3. Tyrese is kind of trailing. He kicks it back to Tyrese. Instead of even going towards the basket, he would have had an easy layup if he takes one more dribble towards the basket. He starts heading east and west when he gets to the free throw line, almost like it's a penalty if he goes inside the restricted area. I just don't understand what is going on in his mind. 1 of 7 from the field tonight in 30 minutes, 4 points, a minus 28, the worst of anybody on the roster. That is disgusting. This dude is just playing absolutely garbage basketball right now, Facci.
Flat out, he looks like just another guy. If you'd never watched Tyrese Haliburton before this season, there is no way that you would say that guy is special. And I think that is sad to say because all the last few years, just seeing him on the court, you knew you were witnessing something special. A guy that was viewed as the best passer in the NBA, the engine, someone who could lead the most prolific offense that the NBA has seen in about 40-plus years. We saw that guy last year and in years past. Right now, it's not Tyrese Haliburton. It does not look like him. Like you mentioned before, it looks like he's allergic to drive. I feel like he's settling for threes. Saw a stat the other day of players who qualify shooting 100 3-pointers. He's shooting the worst percentage in the NBA. It was about 28% coming into this game. It only got worse tonight. I just feel like I don't know what happened to him, but it feels, I know the Pacers aren't in that spot right now, that you might have to actually seriously debate sitting him down for a little bit and giving him some rest. And I know that's tough with the amount of players the Pacers are without, but it's hard for me to see him play through this right now and just turn it around. That's where we're at.
I mean, look at last year. Just go back a complete calendar year from where we were at, where we're at now to where we were a year ago. Tyrese Haliburton has all the confidence in the world. He's oozing with confidence, skipping around the court, hitting shots everywhere that he can. The offense is playing fast. They're looking great. They're beating Boston in the in-season tournament. You're feeling great about this team, and you're seeing that joy from Haliburton. There is absolutely zero joy in how he's playing this game. And I think that's what's frustrating to me is because we know that when he's playing the right way, he's a lot different. He is going through the motions. He's kind of moping out there on the court.
Yes.
I mean, to me, at the end of the game, right, a lot of those guys on the bench kind of looked dejected. I know Quinn Buckner brought that up, but it seemed like he was just kind of having a conversation with Neesmith, almost like he's becoming numb to like the fact that he's playing so poorly. But everybody was like hopeful that after that Knicks performance, when he had 35 points, 14 assists, 4 3-pointers made, he was going to break out. Since then, Facci, I put the numbers out on Twitter. In the last 6 games, 11.1 points per game, 21 of 71 from the field on 29.5% shooting, and his plus minus has been a minus 60 in that. Okay. To me, this is way deeper than physical. This is about 85% mental to me. He does not seem mentally checked in, and I feel like he needs some time away from the game or something to gather himself. This offseason was a terrible decision for him. We know that the Olympic run and all that kind of stuff, that can be good for a lot of players. For Tyrese, I think it was the worst thing that happened to him. He got injured once again while he was overseas and came back from that, had another setback, according to Rick Carlisle. And he's just constantly doing, and did not give himself the amount of time he probably needed to recharge. I mean, Tyrese, to me, is a great basketball player when he's playing at his best, but he is not there right now, and this team will never be anything close to what they want to be if he continues to play like this. And I'm not trying to be mean, but it's just like we got to start talking about it more and more, because the pressure needs to be put on this young man, because he's 24 years old. He's the face of the franchise. He's making a heck of a lot of money. And if that's the responsibility you sign up for, you got to bear it.
Yeah, greatness comes with pressure. And I just feel like right now, I mean, it felt like last year, if he had a bad game, I've called it out this year and in the past, it always felt like when Tyrese kind of hit rock bottom, the next game was like, hey, he's going to establish himself early on. He's going to be aggressive. We're not seeing it. He has struggled tremendously in first quarters. Like, he has come out, honestly, what feels like flat in just about every first quarter this year. And that's tough to watch. There has not been a time that he started out where we're saying, hey, you know what? It really feels like Tyrese is in his flow outside of that next game that we mentioned. And maybe one other game against like Dallas. But if we're talking about 2 out of 15 games, that's a problem. And I think that right now I'm happy that he doesn't have like the 65 game, situation hanging over his head for max money, because right now I feel like the Pacers need to look at a longer term situation, see if maybe there is a game or two, an extended period where you could get him, I don't know, 5 days rest, something of the sort, where you could be able to get him some time off and just to like recharge. He's not going to like heal whatever back issue he's going through or anything of that sort. I definitely don't think it's the hamstring from last year. I think this is like a deeper mental type of thing. And he's got to find his flow, because right now, the way that he's playing, the stats that you read, I know it sounds drastic, but I can't name another established player that is playing anywhere close to that poorly in the NBA right now. I just simply can't.
No, I mean, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. And I listened to about an hour and a half podcast conversation between Samson Folk and Caitlin Cooper on her YouTube page, Basketball She Wrote. And they were really dissecting a lot of the things that are going wrong with this Pacers team, right? With Siakam and Mathurin in the lineup, like these guys kind of hold the ball a little bit more before they just get out and run. The decision making is not as quick with those guys, so the ball does stick a little bit more offensively. So that's kind of like held the pace back a little bit. They've also talked about how teams are constantly shading Tyrese Haliburton to his left. I think Caitlin did a really good job talking about this, and how when he drives left, he doesn't even look for a shot. And I even saw that happen multiple times tonight when driving right as well. It's like he's just refusing to try to get into the paint and score. And you mentioned it earlier, like he's allergic or something. So there's a lot of different things that are playing into it. Obviously, the guys that we talked about in the last episode for the recap was like, he's not playing with the Bruce Browns, Obi Toppins, those kind of guys that played fast last year. And Carlisle has constantly alluded to how the league is allowing more physicality in this league, but it's just like those are all excuses. At some point,
They are.
you have to push through that. If you have to learn how to be a half court player and not play in the same pace, and you got to figure it out. He hit 1 3-pointer in this game. That was it. I mean, and it was like one.
Too. It was a wide open three. Like, it actually would have been pretty alarming if he missed that one. So I'm glad he hit that. But yeah, to your point, these were not tough shots.
Yeah, and so I mean, there's definitely things going on. We're seeing teams picking them up full court, and instead of trying to take the ball up, I mean, I don't know how many times I saw tonight, especially in the third quarter, he was telling Quinton Jackson or Ben Mathurin to bring the ball up the court. He just like, don't even get me near the basketball and go stand in the corner. It's just like, well, what kind of offense is this? I mean, you're being guarded by Fred VanVleet. Like, these are decent defenders on Houston. They're a good defensive team. Ime Udoka is a good defensive coach, but that's not an excuse. I mean, come on. I mean, I tried giving Tyrese the benefit of the doubt early on,
Mhm.
after the Orlando game. I was like, you know what? It's just a tough matchup. People kind of getting on my case about it, but I just didn't want to be like, okay, let's overreact after he just had that game against the Knicks. But the Pacers are 2-5 the last 7 games, and Tyrese has been awful. And it's just like, we're at this point where it's like, what else is there to say? Like, you can't make excuses for him, but it's just like he's got to figure it out, and that's kind of where I'm at. It's like I believe that he will. I think that he can. I talked about this on the mailbag. I think that the breakout is going to happen eventually. I mean, even Zach Lowe was saying it at the beginning of the season. Like, Haliburton's going to break out of this, and I think he's got the right group around him in terms of you know who is in his circle. Right? I don't think there's anybody bad in his circle, but I also think that this fun, laid back personality, like when you're not playing well, like we haven't really seen this version of Tyrese and this Pacers team. When their backs are kind of up against the wall, how do they respond when there's a lot more pressure? And right now, he's kind of cratering. And so I think this is where you kind of need to change something, whether it's how Carlisle's coaching this team, or maybe it's how the environment is in the locker room. Is it a little bit too passive? Is it a little bit too chill? Is it a little bit too many guys just kind of moping instead of being like, we got to fix this thing. We were joking about, at least I was, about how I wish Tyrese could find some of the inner Quinton Jackson.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the fact that you got a two-way guy,
Yeah.
my goodness. I mean, the freaking player of the game. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Hands down.
How is he outplaying Tyrese Haliburton by a landslide over the last week? That's ridiculous.
A lot of people agreed with it. I saw some takes on Twitter, and they're valid. Quinton Jackson, first career start, made the absolute most of it. I mean, he looked like a dog out there, like attacking the rim, like actually attacking the rim. Getting fouled. I mean, a shot at a very efficient clip. 10 of 12. Only three of those 12 shots came from 3-point land. I just felt like it was, he was able to get after it. And I felt like we're wondering, like, well, why can't our guy just have, I don't know, half of that tonight? Because Tyrese has that in him. But to your point that you were saying before, it's like part of what makes him him is like the smile and playing loose and that. And I guess when you are not happy and the ball ain't going in, it's like it's changing everything for him. I don't know how they can get him established early on, but like, to be able to get in a flow, because sometimes we'll see him take shots, but it's like 0 for 3 in the first quarter, and it's like, okay, well, that's not working. But right now, the Pacers, they are beyond below average if Tyrese Haliburton is below average. And right now, I think that it's terrible timing with Andrew Nembhard out, because this could have been a good opportunity to get Nembhard, more shine in that starting lineup, give Tyrese less responsibilities, a game or two off. And right now, it just feels like they almost can't do that because they're so thin on bodies right now. The bench, I mean, the bench is outside of TJ McConnell tonight was just there was nothing there. So to the fact that if Tyrese wasn't out there, man, I don't know how this team. I mean, I don't know. Would they have performed better tonight? Actually, that's the sad thing is if it gets to this point, you looked at TJ McConnell. McConnell's been real good the last 2 games when Halliburton's really struggled, and I don't know, maybe they could have pushed the pace a little bit more. Maybe.
I think they look better without Tyrese out on the court.
They
I mean,
did.
the numbers prove it right there in tonight's game, minus 28 in 30 minutes.
Yep.
I mean, they lose the game by what? 17 points?
Yep.
So they outscored them, the Rockets, when Tyrese was off the floor by 7 points.
Wow.
Whatever that is. I think the math's
11,
right on that.
11
I don't
points.
remember. But maybe
11.
11, yeah. It's just annoying. It's just annoying. I'm fed up with it, and I'm also fed up with how many times we have come on this podcast and said, you got to get Pascal Siakam more touches. The guy had 2 points in the second half and 2 field goal attempts.
Just 2.
Facci, he was 7 of 12 for 19 points in the first half. He goes 1 of 2 in the second half for 21 points. What are you doing? Like, I don't understand how they just completely go away from him. And I'm sure Houston did make some adjustments defensively to not give him as many looks, but they didn't even look at him. I mean,
not
they
at all.
refused to even force the ball to him. It's like, what are we doing? It's like, I don't understand why it's so complicated. This has been a reoccurring issue
Very much.
for at least 8+ games this season where the Pacers have completely went away from Pascal after he is just keeping them afloat. Like, if you don't have Pascal's first half performance, this is a 40-point loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take the mic from me.
No, I'll take it over here because it looked like a movie we've seen before. We knew what the ending was going to be. I tweeted out, I said, Pascal Siakam has 19 points on 7 of 12 shooting. It would be a crime to stop feeding this man. Like, keep feeding him consistently. I knew it wouldn't happen, but I wanted to put it out in the air. Like, you gotta keep going to Siakam. One shot in the third quarter came towards the beginning. One shot in the fourth quarter, just like you said, just two shots in the second half. He went one of two. I don't know how it happens every single time, but like right now, it's a major problem. I would love to see the difference between Siakam scoring in the first half and Siakam scoring in the second half this year. I would love to see what he's averaging because I feel like in the second half, I don't want to throw out a number and just be totally wrong, but I feel like it is just drastically different than what he is putting up in the first two quarters. Let alone whatever he's averaging in the fourth has to be much lower than what he's consistently averaging through any other quarter this season. But it's a problem right now, and I think that if the Pacers already have their Tyrese problem, like this is a big second half issue for Pascal Siakam, and it's not on him. It's not like he's taking bad shots. He's not getting shots. So just to put things in perspective, at halftime he had 19. No other Pacer had more than 9, which was Quinton Jackson. Clearly he was the guy that, like you said, was keeping them in single digits. It was a 9-point game at halftime, but Siakam was doing his.
I mean, what did the Rockets go on to end the second quarter?
A
7-0
9-2
run. It was like a 10-2 run, 7-0 run there is what I counted. When it was like 55-52, I think Turner had made some free throws or something like that, and they went on like a 7-0 run in like 90 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can't close out quarters that way and expect to win, especially when you're on the road. And like Houston's been a pretty solid basketball team this year. I don't even know what they are in the standings, but they're like 11-5 for the year now, I think.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're playing bad basketball. They have good basketball players, but it's ridiculous. It's just an effort thing. And I think, Rick Carlisle said tonight, according to Scott Agnes's tweet here, he said, our connectedness is not where it needs to be. Our collective spirit is not where it needs to be. I'm going to look very closely at the film tonight, and we've got to come up with answers, emphasizing the need for consistent hard play. We have not had enough of it. I mean, that's pretty basic stuff that you're telling the media. I don't know what kind of internal discussions we're going to have because, just a couple days ago, right, we hear reports out of Philadelphia that they're having a players only meeting, right, that Joel Embiid denied that they had, and Tyrese Maxey's basically calling out Joel Embiid for not being the leader that he needs to be. I respect the crap out of Tyrese Maxey for doing that, but who's the guy that's going to call out Tyrese Haliburton? I mean, to me, if I'm the head coach of this team, and I'm not, and there's a reason why, because I don't know enough about basketball, but if I was the head coach of this team and Tyrese is playing like he's going through the motions in the first 3 minutes of the game, I'm yanking him out of the game, and I'm putting Quinton Jackson in the game because I'm proving a point. You're our leader, and if you're not playing good basketball, I'm not going to ride with you. I'm sorry, but you're getting paid a lot of money to be our guy. But if you're not going to do that, you got to prove to me that you're deserving of those minutes. And if you're not gonna play hard, then I'm not going to play you. And maybe that'll send a message because superstar guys like that, they don't want to be embarrassed and be put on the bench. And I think that would kind of send a message, and I think it would kind of change things up a little bit. Like, okay, if Carlisle is willing to hold our best player accountable like this, then the rest of us have to live up to those standards. So I mean, that's just basic 101 coaching. We're not looking at Bobby Knight on this Pacers coaching staff right now doing something like that. But, he had a great quote back in the day. He's like, if butt meets bench, player plays better. And I think that's pretty basic right there. I mean, sometimes guys need to be set down when they're not playing well. If you're going to pull Quinton Jackson out of the game because, he had 2 defensive mess ups, but you're going to let Tyrese play through 30 of them, what kind of accountability are you talking about here? Because it seems like you're giving somebody star treatment when they really don't deserve it.
No, it's true. We've heard in the past that Bill Belichick treated Tom Brady just like he treated anyone else. He was really hard on him, despite Brady being an absolute superstar. Now, look, Haliburton's no Tom Brady, but I still feel like you need to be able to have that same type of leash with just about everybody. We've talked about before. He had a very short leash with Mathurin for quite some time. The way that Tyrese is playing right now, in my opinion, I think that Tyrese would respond positively. I don't think this would be some sort of, butchered relationship from some other team. Like, Tyrese is a guy who has a really good head on his shoulders, and I think that it would be a wake-up call to him, and something has to happen. Some way to wake him up in this team, because we're seeing a team right now that, Alex, the Pacers shot 53% tonight. They lost by 17. 23 turnovers. You got out rebounded by 11. I mean, across the board, you couldn't shoot the 3 if their life depended on it. It's like, this is not Pacer basketball, and it's it's getting a bit painful to watch. You can say you can make all the excuses you want. Oh, Houston's a better team and they're good at home. Okay. Are they 17 points better? I mean, no. If Indiana cleans up the turnovers, they're right in this game. If Tyrese has a halfway decent game, if he shoots, I don't know, 40%, he has 10 points, whatever it is, like something of the sort, to be able to just be, what he is to this team, they can get it going. But I just feel like right now it starts with him. I don't want to say it ends with him, but 100% it does start with him.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, and we can continue to go in and go in and go in. I'm running out of things to say and enough analogies here, but I mean, we gotta figure this out because we're looking at a team, the Pacers, who have lost 4 of their last 5 games, and they had a magical moment last year against the Bucks multiple times. Going, what was it, 8-3 against them? I think it was
Yeah, I
in
believe
the
so.
regular season plus the playoffs.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, don't look now. The Bucks are 6-9 as well, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games, and their one loss came in a 1-point loss to the Hornets. So they really could be on a 5-0 winning streak. And the Pacers are heading to Milwaukee, playing awful, awful, awful basketball. 1-4 in their last 5, just absolutely abysmal. So, we'll see who's available. It seems like Ben Shepherd potentially could be back, and I think that will help a little bit on the perimeter defense, but that still should not be the answer for this team. So let's just look at a couple other players here tonight that I want to point out, and I think that one guy that we really got to bring up is Jarus Walker in a negative light. Facci, I mean, 0 of 5 from the field, did have 5 of 6 from the free throw line, but 4 turnovers. I know that he was battling a sickness. He was questionable before the game, but my goodness. I mean, have you noticed how casual he looks out there on the court sometimes when he's just making these passes? Like, so lackadaisical, so lazy, sailing balls out of bounds. Just, I don't know. He just seems to me like he is definitely mentally going through it. And I get that as a young player trying to prove yourself, but he does not look right to me.
No, he doesn't. He had a couple threes that were just way off tonight. Over his last 3 games, he's 4 of 19 from the field. I mean, that's really tough. He had 4 turnovers tonight. He had 4 turnovers in 20 minutes. That's a lot. 4 turnovers, 4 fouls. I mean, right now I feel like Jarus. You look at the Orlando game where he was phenomenal. He really was. And that was a couple games ago, and not the recent Orlando one. A couple ones where 7 of 7 from the field.
When they were at home.
Yeah, outside of that, there's really only been a couple moments where I feel like it's been like, hey, Jarris looked real good tonight. And like he's had the opportunities. It's not by a lack of opportunity. In the month of November, he's averaging over 20 minutes per game. He is consistently in the rotation. Beginning of the year, there was a couple games, yeah, 2 minutes there, 4 minutes there, 6 minutes there. Like he's been consistently getting opportunities, and we're not really seeing that big jump, whatever you want to call it. But like for him to consistently be in the rotation right now, you could make an argument that if this team was healthy, I don't know if he would, based on the way that he's playing. If you throw in a Ben Shepherd, and Andrew Nemhard, and an Aaron Nesmith, all of a sudden you start to say, you know what, maybe if Jarus Walker doesn't have enough minutes, maybe it's all right for this game. Maybe it's all right for that one. When there's maybe a week or two ago when Jarus Walker was playing really well, we started to say, well, what do we do when everybody comes back? Do they play a 10-man rotation? Like we started to have that conversation. Now it's like, well, Jarus has got to earn those minutes a little bit, and I think that's unfortunate because this is a huge opportunity for him.
No, it really is, and I think that this is kind of it shows you why the Pacers didn't play him in the playoffs last year because he's not good enough and he's not ready for this moment.
Not ready. Yeah.
And he's so young. Like, I'm not writing the guy off. I think he's still got a lot of talent. I'm a big believer in Jarus Walker, but he's not playing good basketball right now. And I think you're 100% right. If this team is fully healthy, he is not in the rotation, whatever. I mean, I think Quinton Jackson has outplayed him this season. And
Absolutely. I have been impressed. Quinton Jackson has turned me into a believer. Off season, I know I'm cutting you off here. Off season, I went, you know what? I don't know, a little bit inconsistent. He's whatever. He's a fringe NBA guy. This is a guy who is fighting for his spot in the NBA, and every day it feels like rent is due for Quinton Jackson right now.
Yeah, and I think this is like where Jarus Walker could benefit from playing similar to Quinton Jackson. Like, I put it on Twitter as we're recording right now, and I was like, look, imagine that. A guy that plays hard has a great game, a career game. Maybe more players could jump the QJ train and join him, right? Like, it's just, to me, like Jarus Walker, like, he should be doing exactly what Quinton Jackson's doing. When given an opportunity, going out there and playing all cool, playing all out and not being all cool. And I think sometimes you got to get this, oh, I'm a lottery player. I should be getting these many touches. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. It's like, nah, I mean, you got to earn it. Like we see lottery players all the time that can't make it in the league because they almost just don't have the work ethic. That's what you need to take those next steps. I'm not saying Jarus doesn't have the work ethic, but you're being outworked by guys that are on the bottom of the roster on two-way contracts. Like to me, at this point, like I don't know what they're going to do with Quinton Jackson moving forward, but it's almost like he has earned a spot.
I agree.
On this roster early on, and it's almost more telling of how bad this team's been playing. That he's kind of been the talking point in a positive light. So it's like we've had a lot of great conversations about Benedict Mathurin for the majority of this season. He had a dud tonight, just 8 points. I don't really know. I just felt like he never really got involved in the offense very much. Kind of felt like he was very randomly involved, and I think that played a factor into him getting going. So it's just a lot of it just kind of starts with Tyrese, right? And I think we can circle back to that, and it just leads to everything. Like Miles Turner in losses has been awful. I think there was a stat out there that was like he's like averaging like 12 points in losses and like 20 something points and wins and shooting really great numbers. Like we talked about that on the Miami game with David and Carson. I did because he played great in that game, and it feels like the last couple games he's played great and the Pacers win. But I don't know, Foch. Everything I'm saying is just like it's fixable. It's not like it's not fixable. It's a play hard issue, and it's been going all season long and back to the preseason. Like Rick Carlisle just saying, like, we're just not connected as a group. It's like, if you're not connected, then I don't think watching film is going to help you realize why you're not connected. There's got to be something internal going on with this team, and he's got to find it. He's the veteran head coach. He's got to find it. He's got to push the right buttons, and maybe, just maybe, he needs to be a little bit harder on a star player.
I think he does have to come down because it looks like Carlisle's been on the verge of blowing a gasket or whatever the saying is for dating back to the preseason. And look, you talked about that just now. This team's rarely looked good this year, and I don't want to blame it on the money. I don't, because I think that's an unfair statement. But just about every player on this team got rewarded this offseason, and I don't want to blame that on they're losing their hunger, but like. Haliburton, his max contract kicked in. All right, Siakam got his max contract. Obi got a new deal. Andrew Nembhard just got a new deal. It's like money was paid like left and right, and I feel like those guys were all scratching and clawing for that opportunity. So much to gain. Everything was this huge contract on the line. You brought back the same team. You rewarded them more, but we're not getting any more results. We've lost like a little bit of heart, a little bit of hunger. And I think this team needs to find it. I definitely get it. This is a long season. But this is also not something you just flip a switch and all of a sudden, we're back. At some point, yes, the Pacers are going to get healthy again. They're going to play better basketball. But how long can you go on like this? Because I mentioned it an episode or two ago. You and I, we looked at the schedule. We started to say, this is a pretty decent schedule where you could be able to pick up some wins. I'm sorry, but Milwaukee's going to come in there so hungry and looking at the Pacers for revenge for what happened last year. And I just wonder what Indiana Pacers team is going to show up against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I feel confident knowing which Milwaukee Bucks team is going to show up to play the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I have no idea what to expect from this Pacers team. Like, hopefully this is what, the juice is.
Hopefully.
It's what I hope it's like what sparks this team, right?
Yeah.
This Milwaukee rivalry that got pulled off of ESPN because they'd rather watch the depleted Pelicans take on the Warriors
That's a big
than
mistake.
Pacers Bucks. But I think it's because they're freaking out about the TV ratings. They're like, we got to get Steph Curry.
Steph
Milk
Curry,
this cow.
always
as
does a
much
big
as we
rating.
can. I mean, and that's been a big talking point. Like NBA ratings are at an all-time low, it feels like, but I don't know if I buy into it right now. It's so early on in the season, but this is an NBA Cup game too, and I think it's going to matter. We're going to talk a lot about this game tomorrow with Ty Windish, our friend over from the Eurostep podcast with the Blue Wire Podcast Network, and Ty, I'm sure he's feeling a lot better about the Bucks and the direction they're heading after winning 4 of their last 5 and playing better basketball, but it's just perplexing how bad this Pacers team has been. And I know they've been without Nembhard and Nesmith, who are kind of like two glue guys, but you talked about the money. And I kind of want to go back to that because I don't know if I necessarily think it's because, these guys got paid, but what I think is partially part of it, Facci, is, oh, these guys made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they kind of feel like that they're almost just going to cakewalk their way there,
Yeah.
right? It's not a cakewalk. You're going to have to. It's hard to win in this league, and I think they're kind of forgetting how difficult it is to prepare every single night. Before, these were guys that were like hungry, like you mentioned. They're not as hungry. They were the hunters. They were looking to prove a point. They wanted to make sure everybody knew how special they were and how they were going to shock the world. Now everybody's kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I think they're kind of like the Atlanta Hawks from
Yeah.
2021. I think they're kind of a flash in the pan. And Tyrese and all those guys are like, yeah, we've been hearing everything they've been saying. We're gonna come out here and we're gonna handle it right. We know we're not the hunter anymore. We're the hunted and blah 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 blah. I mean, hey, you can say everything you want, but actions don't. Words don't mean anything until you put it to action. And we have yet to see them put it to action. So yeah, they've had some big wins. They did that last year, but they're losing a bunch of crappy games that they should be winning, despite who's healthy and who's not healthy. Yeah, they probably should have been better in the Raptors game. That was awful, the way they competed. This game against Houston tonight, yeah, Houston's better, but they competed horribly for the majority of this game. So execution's bad, connectivity's bad, energy's bad. I just everything's bad about this team right now, Facci. They just stink. They just flat out stink.
There's no other way to put it. I mean, it's just this is tough. I mean, watching Pacer basketball last year, it was so fun. I remember it was at the point there were so many different times I couldn't sit down at the end because I felt like we were always going to be locked in like a tight game and it was going to come down to the end and we are going to hit some clutch shot or whatever it is. We slayed another good team. It's like I'm waiting for some moments and like little by little we're getting close to the. I did the math last time when I said it was almost like 20%. I think we were like 17% of the way into the season. We're about a fifth of the way into the season. And right now I feel like there is cause for concern. This is at one point it was a 24-point game against this Rockets team. I felt like the Pacers have no business being down 24 points against this Rocket team, especially when they were shooting over 50% from the field. Like I mentioned, that's stuff that just doesn't happen. I mean, they had 7 turnovers in the first quarter. It's like they just started sloppy and it got worse and it got worse and it never really looked like in the second half at least the Pacers were never a threat. They were never like, hey, they get a basket over here, they could be right in it. It's like we just watched that lead extend and extend until like it got to the point where when the Pacers were down like 20, and it was like basically maybe towards the end of the third quarter, I just said like, do I even want to see the starters anymore? Like maybe they could just use some rest. And it's like when you're just shutting it down at that point, each game it feels like each game saying like, you know what, maybe we just rest the starters for the fourth. I don't know if it's worth it. It's like that's cause for concern.
No, it is. It's ridiculous. I mean, you should be playing your starters heavy minutes in the fourth quarter because they should be winning games. They should be out there closing and competing, and that's the problem. Too many times we haven't seen it. So I don't have anything else to complain about. I mean, I've complained enough. I think the coaching staff has to be better, even though I do like this coaching staff, and I thought they did a great job last year really getting this team to the level they got them to. And I think that this year they just got to do some soul searching. I think that's a lot of it, Facci. Just
Yeah,
the
it is.
coaching staff, the players, the front office, they got to do some soul searching. And that's where I'm just like, okay, can I figure this out? Like it's only 6-9. They're only 3 games under
You,
500. Like we can say that for a little while, but eventually, like you're gonna have to turn that corner at some
you
point.
do. You
So
do.
you're hoping when Nimhard and Neesmith get healthy, they can turn the corner. But you got a big road trip coming up here in December. It looks like not a lot of not a lot of home games, and then you're going overseas in January to Paris, France, to take on the Spurs and back-to-back games there in Wemby's home country. So it's not going to be easy. The schedule never gets easier. It never gets lighter. It's just like we looked at it early on. Like we thought, okay, they got like 4 or 5 home games coming up here next week. Maybe they can turn it around then, like start
Big
with Milwaukee and
opportunity.
then play a bunch of home games. Like this is where they really got to turn it around, in my opinion,
Huge opportunity.
if they want to kind of break out of this slump. And I think they can do it, right? I'm still not like writing this team off, but man, they got a lot of soul searching to do.
No, they do. All right, let's be honest. And this is rough. I'm gonna chalk up the Milwaukee game as a loss. I just think that this is before things get better, they're gonna get a little bit worse. I would like to say maybe could that be rock bottom? I don't know. Could this be the rebound? Because here's the thing. They're gonna play Washington is all at home. Washington, New Orleans, Portland. and then Detroit. Detroit's not bad this year, but those are four very winnable games. Very winnable games. Even if they drop the game to Milwaukee. I know winning four straight sounds like a far-fetched thing, but if that happens, they're back to 500. They're back to 500 at that point. And if the Pacers can be at 500 right when we're heading into December, they play Memphis on December 1st. You would think maybe by then, maybe Andrew Nembhard's back. Like that is definitely a possibility. Neesmith, maybe. Like you're going to be, Shepard's definitely going to be back by then. You're getting, I would probably say, two of those three players back. And to me, it feels like, okay, what more excuses can you make at that point? Like, let's get it going. So I think let's get through Milwaukee. I don't want to have it scheduled as a loss, but you know how it is. It's like it's the last game on a 3-game road trip, and you're coming back home, and I think like things like that is the Milwaukee game is going to get ugly, but I do think it gets better after that.
I mean, they have to be the more desperate team against Milwaukee. They have to play like
Me
even if
personally,
they lose the game, if they play with a lot of
show
effort and it's
something.
like a close loss, like yeah, like you said, show me something. Like show me that you actually care. But if they don't at least go 3-1 on that home stretch with 4 games, then I think it's time you really got to start being, pushing the panic button a little bit
Yeah.
with this team. And I think that some drastic changes might need to be made in terms of what you do with the roster moving forward and what kind of players you bring in here. So, we always know that when teams have expectations and they don't reach them and they don't meet them, then that's when changes start to happen. And I know it's only 1 year past their Eastern Conference Finals run, so maybe there's a little bit of grace period there because I think the front office would honestly say like last year's run was a little bit surprising to them. Never really expected it, and I felt like they didn't commit to getting back to the Eastern Conference Finals as a goal this year. It was more of like a improvement as a team as they continue to kind of grow. So it's like I think fans' expectations are rightfully so, like higher. But I think the front office and the coaching staff are kind of like, man, we know this is going to be really tough now that expectations are so high. So it's just a matter of how you balance it. But I do think that, hey, there's going to be pressure from the fan base specifically on the front office to make changes, whether it's with the coaching staff, whether it's with, players that go out and get and making a trade, Facci. I just think that something is going to have to change if this team does not turn it around. But I do think that the next 5 games are all winnable games, despite Milwaukee being 4-1 of their last 5. I do believe that this is a chance for them to turn it around. But like you said, there's been no proof in the pudding to make me feel good about saying that. I'm just almost like wishful thinking at this point.
Oh, trust me talking about a 4-game winning streak the way we're playing right now is like I might as well take the big red nose off my clown shoes. I mean, it's like I got to see something first. But one thing I do want to give a shout out to, Caitlin Cooper had a great tweet. This is about like 2 days ago. So unfortunately, these numbers actually got worse. But she talked about the home and road split for Tyrese Haliburton. She said, so Tyrese is kind of a different player this season when he gets to sleep in his own bed. He doesn't have to fly on a plane. Listen to these stats, knowing these are from 2 games ago. At home, now these stats have not changed. He's averaging 20.8 points per game on 46% shooting, 39% from three, and 79% from the free throw line. Whatever. Away, this was 2 games ago. It was 12.1 points per game on 32% shooting, 19% from three, 81% from the free throw line. Over the last 2 games, he's averaging 10 points per game on abysmal shooting, 6 of 25. So that would mean that his away numbers are actually closer to about 10 or 11 points per game on about sub 30% shooting away. I don't know. Maybe it is a travel thing. Maybe his back is flaring up when he's on the road and just out of his routine. Who knows? I thought that her tweet could very much have some validity to it as to like, you've always talked about, hey, nothing like sleeping in your own bed. And now we're seeing it in real time to our star player.
Hey, I put the tweet out on our podcast page and I was like, hey, who's going to travel? Who's going to bring the bed with them on the road? Like, if
Someone's
that's
got to
the
do
biggest
it.
deal, I mean, Facci and me, we'll gladly get a moving truck and take the bed wherever we need
Oh
to
yeah.
go to get Tyrese playing better. But like, to me, it's just like get your head out of your butt and play some better basketball. I mean, oh, not in his own bed. Oh, he's
I
crammed him on a
know.
bus.
I
Oh, he's
mean,
got this luxury plane that he's sitting on. My God, dude, you're $260 million in the bank. You're
Like for a
fine.
travel mattress. I don't know. What do you got to do? Get your own bus. Like it's just something's got to happen. But like we said before, we can't make up the excuses. Orlando's a really good defense. Yes, they are. All right. This guy's got a good defender. Every team should have at least one good defender, on their team. There's always going to be something. Star players show up. I think for Tyrese, he will show up. We're just looking at our watch, tapping it and saying, does this thing still work? Because I'm still waiting right now. And that's where I'm at.
I mean, even a broken clock is, right twice a day, Facci. So
Sure.
that's kind of how it's been with Tyrese Haliburton this season. We've had some breakout games, breakout in quotations, this season. Maybe we've
Two
seen
of
like
them.
two of them.
Like the broken clock.
Yeah, it's what it is. I mean, he's a broken
Right, a
clock.
little bit more though.
You want to get that battery fixed, put a new battery in there, do something, man. My goodness, you've got enough energy on this team from Quinton Jackson and TJ McConnell at the point guard spot that should motivate you enough. Like if I were a star and I saw the way Quinton Jackson was playing and I saw the way that I was going through the motions, like, at least for Miles Turner after his game against the Heat, he was like talking openly and candidly about
Great.
just about how he held himself accountable. And he's like, that stuff's negative. I was an energy sucker. Like Tyrese Haliburton's been more of an energy sucker than Miles Turner has been this entire season. So I know Rick Carlisle was praising his leadership after, I think it was the Knicks game. Maybe it was the Magic game. He was just like talking about how he's really leading, even though he's struggling. It's like, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing any leadership skills on the court from Tyrese the last 7 games. And maybe I'm just overlooking it, but I don't know. I mean, quit coddling the guy. He's got to play better in the story. I don't have anything else to say. Let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap it.
All right, Facci, where can people find us at on social media? We haven't done this in a while, so maybe we can kind of give people a refresher if they're new to this podcast.
If I still got it, so you can find Alex on Twitter at Alex Golden NBA. I can be found on Twitter at _FACCI. You could find us on Twitter and Instagram at PacersPod STP. You can find us on Facebook and TikTok at Setting the Pace. And Alex, tell them where they can check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, go to youtube.com/Setting the Pace, a Pacers podcast where you can find all of our video content. And unlike Facci, I have made the jump to Blue Sky. So if you've made that jump as well, you can follow me on Blue Sky at Alex Golden NBA. But Facci, I don't know what else to say, but hey, the NBA Cup is back, baby. I'll be in Milwaukee. I'm going to wear my lucky Pacers socks, hopefully pull them out of this rut. But if you're hoping the Pacers can do what they did last year and just dominate the Bucks again, hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.